Weibo. Weeby. What does that mean? Oh, that it's upside down, but I think it still works upside down.
I'm gonna restart this.
Who are we recording it for? Hello, Earl, Sherry, and Ben.
It's going now.
Okay, it's going. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and women, Valentine's Day was 2 days ago, and if I have to be honest, good riddance. Has there ever been a more cringeworthy day in the whole of the American calendar? The guy who sent the girl the card that read, "Your beauty hits bullseye in my heart like Cupid's arrow," deserved to have real arrows fired in his direction. I mean, compared to that, he could have gone with the classic, "Girl, aren't you tired? You've been running through my dreams all night." Or, still better than the original choice, "What's your favorite number?" "Oh, well, my favorite number is actually 7 numbers, and they just happen to be the same as your phone number." There will be none of that type of nonsense here today. As tonight, we, Vandal Catholic, present to you our second Hippo lecture of the semester, the Valentine's Day talk you deserve, entitled Postcards on Love and Relationships from 27th Century America, an advice column. It follows 2 main characters, Hans, who only goes by Hans, and Oksana, better known as Blue, and their life story from meeting to parting to coming together again over the course of 6 sections, all fiction, approximately 40 minutes, apparently. All instructive, we hope, for those of you wanting a few real takeaways or 2, the finale being the place to find the long-awaited for advice, maybe 2 pieces of advice, maybe 3, maybe 4 or 5. Please note, woman de femme is the 27th century term for feminist. Subterraneans are what woman de femmes call men. East, Southwestern, South, Northeastern, West North American University of the Arts and Logic is a university in New Mexico. It's also known as SWAL, it's its abbreviation. The rest should be pretty self-explanatory. In this talk, everyone is both a Montague and a Capulet. Actually, no one is, but maybe you are. Now think about that. So much hard work, so much self-assurance, and it actually was you all along. Thank you. Gracjan.
Thank you, Cecily. Good evening, everybody. At the conclusion, as always, I'm happy to take questions for as long as you'd like to pose them. Section A, recollections, Hans's first person perspective. What is mutual infatuation syndrome? Exactly what it sounds like, Hans says. I'm not following. We fell in love at first sight. We were both mutually infatuated, but neither of us could handle being in each other's presence. Blue claimed I was so handsome she was afraid of an opposite Medusa effect if she looked at me for too long, that she would melt, die by melting, like an ice cube under hot tap water. It was just awful. I didn't have any of these symptoms, but the 3 times I kissed her, I was like within 2 seconds knocked out in need of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, which ironically, I could not get from the one person I desperately wanted it from. So it was beginning to get pretty obvious that we couldn't be around one another, that we'd have to break up. And then one day, Blue told me she was leaving school to enroll in some program at Georgia Tech, a space program triple screened to select the team for multinational mission number 4 to Mars. And then she went to Mars. Section B, sometime during Blue's career at East Southwestern, South Northeastern, West North American University of the Arts and Logic. She, a student in Dr. Emily Williams Davis Fontenot Stevenson's course, Misogynist Men of Postmodernity. Hans, too, having had this woman as a professor, but for a different class. Dr. E.W. DFS is a Womondo Femme Plus, someone who believes that subterraneans are to blame for all the world's ills. She says a Womondo Femme should never pander to subterraneans' eyes, nor should she care the slightest bit about fashion, nor should she know anything about cooking. And yet each week she brings homemade brownies to class and wears the latest Italian short shorts paired with extremely revealing tank tops that can only be bought online with a virtual foreign currency. She does make delicious brownies. Blue is watching a recorded live stream video of a self-professed expert on everything, a man named J. Clay Fourth Gear Floret, a former actor of the B, maybe C list rung, who moved to a cabin in the Montana wilderness, grew a beard, learned to milk cows and gather eggs from the chickens that laid them, got a few pigs, tilled the land just a little bit, but really makes his living off of daily live streams watched by a few thousand fans, rabid, all of them, who then donate while they comment on his super chats. Dr. EWDFS dated Fourth Gear Floret for more than a year a few years back. None of the students know this. She makes them watch his videos at least twice a month just so she can read all the negative reflection papers she has her class right afterwards. The insults heaped on Fourth Gear Floret come easy and one after another. The more viciously her students treat him, the higher grade she assigns. And yet, every time and without fail, she reaches a tipping point into tumbling down off the apex of enjoyment to a deep pit of sadness, at which time she usually reaches into a closet and pulls out one of the 3 t-shirts she stole from him when they broke up. She puts the t-shirt on and starts crying. Blue presses play on Fourth Gear Floret's most recent stream. He reads a comment from the super chat silently to himself. Yeah, okay, how do you mean? Or like, what do women want? That's the question. Okay, let me just say, I'm not bragging. Studies have shown that the most attractive type of man, and I mean to all women, women across all backgrounds, looks exactly like me. I'm just following the science. Look, it's simple. It's very easy. Back when I was in Hollywood and partying pretty hard, my method was this, and it was foolproof. I'd show up at a party and just start being really loud and obnoxious. The key was getting into a fight. Get into a nice scuffle with another dude, land a punch, take a punch, a good punch right in the face. I'm telling you, the women would go nuts. It was like kicking a hornet's nest, but in a good way. No, listen. He's on to another question. No, that's false. Liberal women, feminists, pretend to dislike super conservative men because they're actually obsessed with them. They want to be with them, but can't admit it. I once dated this college professor, and she was so far to the left, it was actually disturbing. She started a petition to grant parents the right to vote because they could talk. I mean, she was really, really hot. Don't misunderstand me, but like her views on things were so asinine, it seemed like she was just BSing it all. And that's the point. I think she was in some way. She'd repeat one crazy talking point after another, just waiting for some guy to be like, no, that's completely wrong. And I think for her, that would be like the sign. This is a guy she wants to be with. So I met her for dinner once, and she was being so freaking naggy. You do this wrong. Why do you do this? Why that? What will my friends say about you, about us? And I'm ready to go insane. And I just blurted out, I think everyone in America not named Smith or Williams should be deported immediately. And her whole mood just changed. She jumped into my arms and was like, baby, I missed you today. I'm telling you, try it. Go do an experiment. Sit in on a meeting with some Mondo Femi business leaders. And when they go around the table asking, how do you feel company culture could be improved? Say, I think it should be illegal to express emotion. You could propose marriage to any of them and they'll accept without hesitation. Section C, sometime during Blue's career at SWAL, Blue's first person perspective. But can you believe she said that? That B, Jana says. I mean, why? Why would she just go and do it like that? We are sitting at a corner table in the Student Center Auxiliary Cafeteria. The only other option for this situation was to get a gallon of rainbow chip frosting, double moose tracked, caramelized, vanilla overlay, girl, you be cray ice cream, and watch some David Duck Duck Goose movie. Now, I have to confess, I've never been a big fan at films aimed at young women's broken hearts. Something about the genre feels predatory, taking advantage of our temporary sorrow. Like the most famous Duck Duck Goose movie, the one where his character marries some girl, and then she leaves him, and then he remarries and is again jilted until it happens again, one more time. And then the 3 women decide in tandem they want to remarry David's character all at once. This is basically where the whole Mondo Femi movement ended, polygamy. But what kind of polygamy, you ask? To be found worthy, he needed to successfully pass a few tests, needed to demonstrate that he had been purged of any and all remaining toxic masculinity. And so he memorized Friedan's feminine mystique and then recited it out loud. He vowed to never again watch sports, never again drink beer or eat meat. He would never again read novels by male novelists, listen to music composed by men, and above all, never cast a vote for a man running for political office. This only if his campaign to abolish male suffrage hadn't been successful first. Good, the women said. You are almost ready. Now, the final step, don't just sit there, Blue, Janice says. Don't you agree? Sorry, I say. But what was the question again? Allison's head falls into her folded arms. She starts sobbing. Jana gives me a dirty look. I really do feel bad now. Like most people, I don't intentionally set off into daydreams. I'm sorry, Allie, I say, rubbing her arm. Would it help if you told us the whole story again, but from the beginning? Allison nods. So both of you know how much I liked Doran. I mean, he's perfect. And the worst thing I did was tell Kate how I felt about him. And to think you actually trusted her, Jana says, glaring. To think you confided in that beast. So you'd been out with Doran before, I asked? No, Allison says. He was in one of my classes. We had class together. I mean, look, I want to say, please don't make fun of me when I tell you this. But one time, him and I got assigned as lab partners. And so the whole time, I'm like so nervous. My hands were sweating. My heart is pounding. And I basically said nothing to him the whole time, except giggling a lot. And I know, I mean, he thinks like, he probably thought I'm such a dumb, stupid, like silly girl who's laughing even when there's no joke being told. It was bad. You don't know what he was thinking, I say. He might have been just as nervous as you. Allison shrugs. He is so gorgeous. And like, I couldn't like get him out of my mind. I needed like at least to try to maybe ask him out or something, at least to get shot down and put out of my misery. So he did, I ask. He turned you down and then this Kate girl made fun of you about it. Allison shakes her head. I asked Kate to help me with Doran I asked Kate to ask out Doran for me. Ooh, I think, bad move. Yeah, Jana says in an effective voice, ostensibly mocking Kate. Of course I'll help you. Yeah, sure, I'll help. I'd love to help. I'll help. So what happened? I asked Kate. Kate agreed to help me. One day after class, she's going to go up to him and like tell him how I feel. And wow, this is so embarrassing. She walks up to Doran and grabs him by the collar and gives him this big, passionate kiss. And he definitely looks stunned. But then he goes right back to her and they're just standing there making out in the hallway. I don't know, I almost vomited. I wanted to cry and throw up at the same time. I just left. I'm really sorry, I say. Why are you sorry? Jana says. Alpha female Blue, you don't have these types of problems, do you? What? I say, taken aback. What is this girl's problem? I thought at first Jana was fulfilling one of the first laws of female friendship. That even if you don't care, or worse, you're happy about it, you always show sympathy, at least feigned sympathy, when one of your girls draws the short straw on anything to do with a guy. But she seems to be actually upset about this. Why is she so upset? Come on, Blue, Jana says. Hans. Okay, first you landed Hans, by far the best looking guy I've ever seen in my life. But the way you did it too, we've all heard the story, the way you just grabbed him or scratched him, claimed him. You just told him to his face that he needed you. So I say, that doesn't mean that approach works for other people. We can't all be like you, Jana says to me with not a hint, but an obvious undertone of derision. Alpha female Blue, Alpha Blue. Section D. Sometime during Hans and Blue's career at East Southwestern, South Northeastern, West North American University of the Arts and Logic, the day they met, in fact, told from Hans's first person perspective. It took me 5 weeks and 6 days to complete this sojourner traverse. I arrived at Eswall with severely blistered feet, thoroughly dehydrated, and 17 pounds lighter than I had set out for many farms. It was worth it. Because after mile upon mile of red desert landscape, seemingly perennial, an abiding, unending scene of timeless, interminable, and unremitting desert, blazing hot under the noontime sun, only to plunge cold into frosted nights, slide rising into morning schmaltzed over with a type of peevish, pleasant longing for the brisk nights, cold as Biago, only to get hot as lava within a few hours, making the clothes-on, clothes-off routine rather tiresome, obnoxious even, especially the part about pulling the one long-sleeve garment you have over sunburned skin because sunscreen is not an option. Painful, considering it's pure Andalusian wool. You ever pull off sweat-stuck wool particles embedded into peeling sunburned skin? Don't do it like a Band-Aid, dude. Slow and steady wins this race, trust me. But the thing is, even done slow and steadily, it means nothing when, because you refuse to wear sunscreen, the burn only gets worse and you ain't got no Silvadine, and the burn gets worse because here's what you packed for the final leg of the journey: a yellow cotton sweater, 18 pairs of wool socks, and swim trunks. The way it sneaks up out of nowhere. There it is, S-Wall, red desert, nothing. Red desert, you turn a corner, beautiful green oasis, water everywhere. I pause, then decide best to better keep silent. I sit down. The applause in the room is deafening. A few people are standing, some are clapping and crying. I don't get it. I'm about to fill out the required questionnaire when some girl leans over to me. Darn noodling. I was about to scribble this up and bounce. Now what? That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, she says, in a hushed voice, a little over a whisper. Her breath smells like wintergreen mints. What a sight. What a gorgeous human woman. Beautiful. Great smile. Hans, they call me, I say, extending my hand. She laughs. I'm Oksana. What's your surname? I ask. She laughs again. Why are people always laughing at me? Hernandez. Hernandez de Soto de todos los buenos sabores dicen de Ponte las Pias de la Cruz Azul. My friends call me Blue. Why? Well, because of my last name, the last part. I don't understand, but I pretend that I do yet. I've heard the surest way to impress women is to always act like you know what's going on. You've got to play it like you're not just an expert amongst other experts. No, you are the one and only expert on whatever topic is being currently discussed. Never let on when you don't know something. Act like you know it all, and the more confidently, the more arrogantly, the better. Women like that. I mean it, she says. That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. What? Your speech, your presentation, it was so moving. I mean, where do you find an experience like that? That's art by definition, is it not? Plunging into the deep waters of the human inner room for the real, the authentic, that's truly special. I don't know what to say. So I just nod, but nod kept. Yep. Can I be frank with you? She says, the word frank a fraction louder than the other words in the just spoken sentence. I respond, trying to balance the displaced auditory scales by making the word that a fraction quieter, softer than the other words in my own just spoken sentence. What does that mean? Do you mind if I tell you what's on my mind? No filter. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, I don't mind. No, go. I don't mind. No, go. I don't mind. Hans. Blue grabs my arm and squeezes hard. It hurts, but I like it. I think you are a man-child, a boy evolving into a man. And when the finished product comes, oh boy, a man. You are a real man, Hans, the last of a dying breed, a breed that should receive immediate endangered species status and the requisite protections. I will protect you if you only let me. I will protect you, you endangered man-child, you wild man, as wild and mysterious as the Schwarzwald itself. I know that no one gets married anymore. I know it's illegal in many parts of the US. Let me tell you, I'm no traditional girl. Do you know what I mean? I do not know what she means. Well, nod. Yep. I'm no traditional girl, but I will be for you. Loaded term, I know. I'm qualifying it even pre-1950s and I'm going pre-flapper 1920s. I'm not saying I'm a Womando Femi. I have my own mind, okay? No man tells me what to do, but Hans, I want you to tell me what to do. And let me say this about marriage. I want you to marry me. I want you to buy a fancy wedding garment. I'll get a flowing type dress and we'll have a solemn minister read solemn words as we make bind, glue-sticking vows in front of everyone who means anything to us. And then Hans, I want you to carry me across the threshold and do the necessary things for us to have 10 children, minimum. I know the government only allows us, screw the government, okay? She grips my arm the hardest yet and burns those majestic black coal eyes into mine. And a held stare is terrifying, as it is beautiful, as it is impossibly intoxicating. Let me say this about the developing situation. All men die, few men ever truly live. I am now living like a screaming bald eagle in full flight high over the Grand Canyon, trying to make his escape from a plethora of bad guys ringing the rim of the canyon, firing bazookas with previously declared, now evident intent to irrevocably and immediately defeatherize me in a swift kick direct hit of boom puff. Screw their child quota policy, she says. Their forbiddance of marriage, all their games and tricks and deceptions. I want you, Hans. Now you know. I don't say anything for 2 minutes. A woman has never talked to me like that. I like it though a lot, her talking to me like that. I say, do you want to go to like the student center and get like a coffee or a juice or something like that after we're done here and then drink it at the same time? Table, chairs, the chair, I'm on the chair. I'm being in the chair I'd imagine that you'd be on at the same time. I wouldn't miss it for the world. So yes, she laughs her hardest. Why? I pick up my questionnaire and get ready to fill it out. Do you have a spare writing utensil piece? I ask Blue. I do, she says, and laughs once more. She fumbles through a zip pocket of tons of pencils and pens while mouthing "I do" to herself, smiling. What is funny about those words? Oh no, I think. I have a lot to learn about the larger world, and in particular, the woman mammalian species. I better get crack-a-lack and South Kakalaki on this learning stuff. Section E, years. Perhaps a decade or so after both Hans and Blue had graduated from East Southwestern, South Northeastern, West North American University of the Arts and Logic. At that very moment, the office door flies open. A woman wearing a blue NASA jumpsuit walks through the door. She is stunningly beautiful. Dark hair, dark eyes. A few things click in Ben's head. Is this Blue from Mars? It must be, because as Ben's thinking, Hans and the person he thinks is Blue are already a few seconds into a long, passionate kiss. They stop kissing and look into one another's eyes. Everyone present outside of them probably thinks this is to make the whole romantic reunion even more romantic. What Blue and Hans are really doing is checking for mutual infatuation syndrome. Nothing. It's gone away. Apparently, making hearts grow fonder isn't the only thing some good old-fashioned absence will do. They go back to kissing. It's not downright definitionally precise gross, but everyone is uncomfortable for sure, because they're kissing not just like they're the only people in the room, but like they're the only people left on Earth. I missed you so much, baby, Hans says, gasping for air. I missed you so much. I love you, Blue says. I love you too. Right then, someone else walks through the door. She is tall, blonde, and wearing her trademark pink spandex. She is almost Blue's match in beauty. Dr. Emily Williams Davis Fonsto Stevenson. Not so fast, she says to Blue, grabbing her by the arm and pushing her aside. She goes to kiss Hans. Hans, to his credit, recoils, but it wouldn't matter anyhow because Blue has already shoved her to the floor. Dr. EWDFS gets up and glares at Blue. He's mine. Blue is about to respond when two more women walk into the office. They're here for the same reason, the same man, Hans. Listen, you stupid broads, Dr. EWDFS says to all concerned. I don't care about your gooey little girl love at first sight stories or your astronaut Halloween costume college party dress-up game or whoever you are. But Hans is all mine. We have, how should I put this, girls? We have some real bonding time together. Hans lowers his head. Blue nudges him to explain. She looks concerned. I'm sorry, Hans says to Blue. When I was in school, after you left, we broke up and doctor. Oh, no. Dr. EWDFS says, none of this doctor stuff. He loves to call me Emily, don't you, Hans? M&M spokeswoman, Skittles Rainbow Dream Girl, all these ridiculous nicknames. Should I go on? Apple Orchard Girl just done come up from the misty Shenandoah Valley. Remember when you liked calling me that? Hans drops his head again. He doesn't say anything. Is this true? Blue says to Hans. Dr. EWDFS looks very angry at the way Blue holds Hans's attention. Everyone in the room can tell that she is livid, Emily. It's all very uncomfortable, this whole scene. It's very awkward, yet simultaneously extremely entertaining in a way that is uncouth to admit. Yes, Hans says. Ooh, Ben thinks to himself, hating the giddy anticipation he's feeling. She's going to let him have it. She's going to ream him out. But she doesn't. Blue just nods silently and gives Hans a hug. I'm sorry, Hans says. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Blue looks up at him. She smiles and starts laughing. I love you, Hans. Of course I forgive you. It's all in the past. It's gone. I don't care. I love you. I know you love me. Nothing can change that. Blue, Hans says. I do. I love you. I do. But I'm going to pay for what I did. As soon as we leave this room, I'm going to find some barbed wire and some glass. I'm going to sleep with barbed wire wrapped around my chest and walk around with glass in my shoes. I'll put some pebbles in there too. I'm going to pay. I'm going to be cleansed of this. I need to be worthy of you again. Ben, what's that thing called when those people, your people, when they did stuff like that, like wearing those horsehair clothes and stuff? A hair shirt? Ben says, laughing, knowing that Hans, Catholic catechism aficionado extraordinaire that he is, knows the ins and outs of the faith better than most could ever dream of. You mean penance, Hans? Ben says with a big ear-to-ear grin. Yeah, that, exactly, that. Yeah, I'm going to do penance. Yeah, Blue. But I'm so sorry. Ben once told me about this guy who lived on top of a pillar for like 40 years all by himself. I'll do that if you want me to. Hans, Blue says, do you love me? Do you really love me? Hans nods. Hans, do you love me? Hans nods again. Hans, now gripping him by the face. Do you love me more than these? Pointing to the other women in the room. Are you ready to one day take care of the sheep and feed the lambs of our love, our children, Hans, our future children, should such a day, God willing, arrive? Yes, Blue. You know that I love you. You know that I have only ever loved you. Section F. So many years after both Hans and Blue had graduated from East Southwestern, South Northeastern, West North American University of the Arts and Logic. Hans is being interviewed on a Catholic television program, the subject 40 years and going strong, key lessons for young Catholic couples. It's a favor to a friend of a friend's cousin. Otherwise, he would not have agreed. Hans and Blue might just be the evanescent, Bigfoot level, hard to find, quote, perfect Catholic couple. Hans converted to Catholicism not too long after Blue came back from outer space. They've been married 44 years now and have 61 children, 12 sets of quintuplets, all boys and one baby girl. 44 years and no mutual infatuation syndrome, meaning endless opportunity for laughs, for hand-in-hand walks, for so much that bedrock friendship that makes good marriages blissful. Also, Blue and Hans are not a little bit famous, but insanely famous. Maybe that's the reason for the interview request in the first place. Blue served as administrator of NASA for 5 years, 10 years after her Mars mission. She was then chancellor of the University of Illinois before leaving that position to start a multimedia company teaching, quote, first-generation farm women how to make homemade butter and the best pumpkin bread west of the Mississippi. Hans, a few decades past now, ran for governor of New Mexico and won, thereby becoming governor of New Mexico. And then later on ran for president of the United States and won, thereby becoming president of the United States of America. He once, during his second term in office with approval ratings at an all-time high, concocted a double fake story. That one, he was taking a long weekend at Camp David, and two, that the Oval Office was at that time to be completely closed off for renovations, just so he could stay in the Oval Office and have it modified to hold gallons and gallons of hot, see 105 degrees Fahrenheit, water, and have powerful jets installed and just basically soak away the stress of the job in his office turned presidential hot tub. It was a great weekend. Aides, thrilled to be in on the joke, brought him beer after beer and snacks galore while he relaxed in the warm waters of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And they even accommodated his demand that every 2 hours, 5 new rubber duckies be brought in and dumped in the tub. What a great time, you know? And Hans would explain just something that all presidents at some time in their tenure do, presidential privilege. His 2 terms were good terms, all things considered. He became the first president to visit the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe while in office, was seen at Mass, daily Mass even, prayed the rosary, kept a weekly holy hour of Eucharistic adoration. For these things and much more, Catholics in America loved him. He also had this pesky habit of punching journalists. 4, 5, if you count the infamous trick-or-treating incident. And well, this was kind of embarrassing to Catholics and everyone, really. But to say that Hans and Blue were and still are a bona fide Catholic power couple is an understatement. And so here he is, Hans. Blue telling him to do the interview because she did not want to do the interview, but was going to be home making pumpkin bread. Mr. President, the interviewer says, clasping his hands together, just let me say what an honor it is for myself, for our audience, for everyone to have you on our show. You're welcome, Hans says, happy to be here. Mr. President, if we could just jump right into the deep end of the pool, what would you say is something essential for young Catholic men discerning marriage today? Stop eating soy. The interviewer laughs. But what I meant was, no, that's it. Stop eating soy. Soy products. Stop consuming things made from soy. The interviewer chuckles this time, then exhales. Look, kid, Hans says, gesturing with his right hand. I hate journalists. No offense. You're a good kid, smart kid. They told me all about Jane. But she has a lot of good things to say about you. But if you want to get through this, believe me, I do. How about I just give you the advice you want, and then we go put away a few pints off camera? How about it? Yes, Mr. President, of course. Yeah, if that's your preferred method of delivery, then by all means. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that is my preferred method of delivery. Yeah. Okay, so Catholic couples should, 1, try their best to live the church's teaching on marriage, okay? I understand it's not possible to underestimate how stupid the average person is. And so they can't understand that it might really be this simple, but it is. Above all, love God and neighbor, be faithful to one another, be open to life, and realize that Catholic marriage is a sacrament because it means you're in it for the long haul. What God has joined, let no man put asunder. It's that simple, period. You need God's grace to live this, but it's not complicated. Love, fidelity, openness to life, a seriousness towards commitment. Number 2, for guys, stop eating soy. Number three, be serious about chastity. May God help you wait for marriage. It's worth it, but understand that chastity means the whole deal. And look, what do you want me to say, young guys out there, quote, struggling with an addiction to pornography? That they're not alone, that God loves them, that he forgives them? All these things are true, of course. No matter what you've done, if you repent, God will forgive you. Praise God. We've got a real overabundance of all these whiny guys going on the media today and just like whining and complaining about being enslaved to pornography. Like, you want a cookie or something, an award? Stop being such a little baby and stop doing that. There's no old school tough love anymore, and we're worse off for it. Maybe the reason people are having a hard time breaking this habit is they're so coddled by all these single-digit IQ media people who are so compassionate and understanding. It sounds like they're enabling them. And I'll add this. The bad parts people focus on, that it's sinful, objectifying to women, that it cheapens the noble character of sex, all that's true. But it's just so pathetic too, and people don't talk enough about that. It would be like a young man saying to another guy, hey, I'd like to ask out that girl over there, but can you do it for me? Then if she says yes, I'll pay you if you let me watch and film your date from afar. You picking her up at 7, you having dinner, all your conversation, the jokes and laughs. And then later on, I'll watch that and I pretend that I'm you. That's precisely what pornography is. Worse because of the actions it entails, sure, but just as pathetic. And I wonder if more young men understood it like this, instead of the nonstop coddling and whining, if they'd wake up and realize one simple fact: you can find the perfect woman. The two of you can have a great marriage together. And that's what the two of you are made for. That's God's plan for you, not the filthy quagmire you're currently submerged in. But you've got to put in the effort. And so, are you following this? I hate this stuff. I don't want to have to repeat this again. Do you get what I'm saying? Oh, no, the journalist says. We're hearing you loud and clear. Yes, sir, Mr. President. Signal received. I honestly think that of all the guests we ever had, Hans cuts him off mid-sentence. Okay, good. So to recap, love, fidelity, openness to life, a seriousness towards commitment, a seriousness about being chaste, no soy. The final thing, the last thing I'll say, and I say this to both men and women in equal measure: marry your equal. Marry your equal. I'm telling you, you're asking for trouble if you go extreme in either direction. A relationship where the woman is totally subservient to the fake alpha man and has to walk 10 feet behind him and has to ask his guidance on everything is going to fail, as predictably as the opposite case, where the completely beta, if not gamma male man has to simp 24/7, begging for even a scrap of approval from his domineering wife. That will also fail. Marry your equal. It's biblical. It was supposed to be like this in the original plan before the original sin. All the nonsense competition and jockeying to dominate between men and women is punishment for the fall. We're not supposed to act like that. We're supposed to complement one another, help and love in perfect harmony. That feeling that my spouse is my equal, I think that might just be what it's all about. Marry your equal. Hans has stopped talking, and so the journalist sees an opportunity to get a word in. He makes a start to speak, but is not fast enough. Hans stands up. No, that's it. I'm done. Enough of this emotional cotton candy talk. No, that's it. Interview's over. Goodbye. Thank you. I think I have to stand for questions. Okay, there we go. Okay, last questions. What does my shirt say? It says better or Belai or something. I got it at a thrift shop in Illinois for $2. So I guess the lack of clarity in the spelling is like emblematic of that. It could too, yeah. It doesn't say babes, but it might as well. I think it's just a nonsense. They probably, some like foreign factory probably made it. It was supposed to say like Bennington or something, and they misspelled it. So that's why it ended up at a thrift shop for $2.
How much of your draft do you change from these lectures?
My draft, what do you mean?
Well, this comes from your book, doesn't it?
Yes, I guess a lot, to answer your question. So like, in the book, the story doesn't follow in that order. I move it around just for the purpose of this. And the section with the guy, the real like, oh, I'm an expert on everything, the women love me, that second section is invented just for this. And so is the final section when he's doing the interview and kind of giving the kind of takeaway advice. So like a percentage, I guess, probably like half or so. Like I have a good base with it. It's different if I'm doing a talk like last month on the label Catholics. It's all kind of just at that moment in the month leading up. And that's what I'll do for my next talk, whatever it'll be kind of just totally, I haven't even thought about it yet. And I'll do the research and the writing within the next couple of weeks. But with this, I have a good kind of like marble base, and then you just kind of chip away and stuff. And like, I started at 43. That was like 28 minutes, actually much faster than Cecily said. I told her to say 40, thank you. Just so I wouldn't rush too fast. I have a tendency to speak too fast anyways. But I'm always cognizant of that as well, that if I left it totally untouched, right now in this format, it's almost 6,000 words. I think if I just put it in without any kind of refining stuff, it'd probably be like 8 or 9, then it gets too long at that point. So maybe like half of, chipping away.
Where do you get your inspiration for these characters?
I don't know. I think there's two schools of thought. Like some people say that whatever you write about in fiction, like it's stuff from your own life. And there's certainly things that like in the past that I've done that are not like autobiographical, but like very similar. This it's hard even to say. I've kind of worked on this thing for a long, long time. I think I mentioned this to all of you back in the fall. At that point, the book is currently signed now. So it's under contract with the press. It'll hopefully come out 2023. Because I gave that talk that on the Hans guy with the catechism, the long kind of rambling monologue. I think that was the last time that I mentioned this thing. At that point, I hadn't had it done yet. And I'm happy that I'm getting it. I'm through the process of editing now with the team there. I'm happy to be done with it. It's been like a 10-year thing. And that probably answers your question best. Is over the course of 10 years, different like influences pop up and you tweak stuff, move stuff around. I do remember with this book that these two like fiction pieces are drawn from. When I finished it initially, like in 2015, it was like 300 words long. And then I had a summer of reading in 2016. I read a bunch of stuff and I had like 600 pages. But it's like I doubled the size of the book, but in a proportional way. It wasn't like 600 pages tacked on, but within the thing, and like created this like school that they're at and all this kind of stuff, which is it's just totally inscrutable in these talks. I mean, it's like very confusing. You have to have the whole context. But I think the characters, they just develop kind of over time. I don't know. I don't want to sound dumb and pretentious. Like these film people who are like, oh, I'm just like, I've lived with this character. It's kind of crap. Like, but I think it's just like, you have an idea of like what you want the people to be. And then like, if it takes that long as this has been, they change over time and stuff. But I would tell you straight up like, oh yeah, this character is like this friend that I know or something. That's not the case. I have had stuff like that where it's based like directly on someone. I can even like laugh with them and this is you, fiction. Like these are just, I don't know. Yeah.
Go more into detail on your hatred for soy.
So I think like, I obviously love like, because it's almost like, okay, when I want to answer that question. But like, I look at the Hippo lectures like in a tripartite format almost. You have the very standard ones, like when I did talk on theology of the body or politics, it's just like straight academic. And you have more that are like the last month that are like more kind of expressive and abstract still. And these are the most like just crazy all over the place. That is like, I have nothing against soy personally. It's just like, I know for some reason, a lot of guys, for some reason, guys that are like that misogynist character are like obsessed with like, if you eat soy, the phytoestrogens will destroy your masculinity, whatever. So it's just funny to like include in this Hans character of like, yeah, he's this like brawling guy, punches journalists, and that's like his secret. Like he increases testosterone level by avoiding soy. At the end, right? Like Cecily, thank you for the introduction, so well said. The takeaways obviously are at the end of what like I think are serious points on like relationship advice, which I would never ever give. But like in this format, kind of like those are maybe some good things. The soy thing is a complete joke. Like I mentioned it 4 times to like hammer home the point how dumb that is, And he's actually kind of trying to be like an a-hole to the reporter. The reporter is an enthusiastic kid like EWTN, right out of Georgetown journalism school, 22 years old. I grew up, wow, you're my favorite Catholic politician. And so he just wants to shut it down, like stop eating soy, like stop wetting the bed. Like just like, right, you know? So there's nothing, I have nothing personally against it. But I know a lot of people that really do, and it's hilarious. So.
Who would you say are the writers that most influenced your writing style?
It sounds cheesy to say, but like my dad is a huge influence. And I don't say that just like, oh, like I love my dad. My dad's a poet. He does a lot of like freeform prose and stuff. I think he'd be foundational in the sense that like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, like the blacksmith kid who becomes a blacksmith, or the farmer kid, farmer dad. So I think like he helped me understand, like, I guess kind of like fundamentals of writing and stuff, and got me interested in all that in the basic sense. And then beyond that, I really am a huge fan of David Foster Wallace. I've mentioned that before. We've talked about him. Like, does anyone know who that is? He wrote the book Infinite Jest. It's so funny. They did a movie on David Foster Wallace where Jason Segel, I think, plays it. And there's this great scene where he's on tour and he's like being interviewed by this guy in this Minneapolis mall. And he says to the journalist from Rolling Stone, like, yeah, this is a guy's book. And it really is. Like, whenever I talk about David Foster Wallace, like, anyone that I know, like all the women I know don't like him or have heard of him. All the guys like, oh yeah. Or I've heard girls be like, oh yeah, like I don't know who he is, but my boyfriend is always talking about it and wants to get through his book. And he's a huge influence because he was one of the people that I read Infinite Jest in 2016, and in that summer, and I actually like, I'm not like bragging or like good for me, but I actually read it like full through. I wasn't like doing the dumb like, you know, Comic-Con, like I'll read 100 pages to brag about it. Like I actually read the whole book and I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy does impossible things. I didn't know you could do stuff like this with literature. And what I find most intriguing about him is that I've mentioned this to people before, he failed RCIA twice, which I know sounds like a joke. Like, how do you fail RCIA? He was a guy who was like, grew up in like, he was born in 1962. So he grew up in that post-Vatican II and the kind of very like, you know, emotional church and stuff. I think he was a guy who never could reconcile like his deep philosophical mind. He studied philosophy and like mathematics at Harvard and was raised, I think, kind of an atheist. He failed by like never being able to, maybe he didn't have the right priest or the right guidance. And so twice he was like God haunted, like Flannery O'Connor, and wanted to go become a Catholic, but couldn't. So I've always thought like, gosh, I would love to like pick up on his work and do the abstract, crazy stuff that he did, but with an actual Catholic thing. And that sounds pathetic and horrible. Like that sounds so pretentious. Like, no, I'm going to do it right. Like he failed. I don't mean it that way. But his book, Infinite Jest, is like basically such a popular book, and very, very polarizing book. People love it and hate it. But it's basically like what happens to the world when sin runs crazy, runs wild. And it was written in the 90s. And it's all about like an advertising and just people addicted to every kind of thing, drugs, sex, whatever. And the only thing he portrays sin in such a Catholic way. It's like this guy is a Catholic, but the one thing missing is that redemptive thing. It just kind of ends depressing. One of the most pathetic scenes in the book, it's hilarious though, is there's this guy who's like dressed in like a Franciscan habit. And it's like right at the end of the book, he goes out to like Harvard Square or something in Cambridge, like in City Square, and just stands like this in a brown habit and waits for someone to come hug him to prove there's like human love left, and no one does. And he I think gets arrested or something. Yeah, and like, but there's like in his work, there's this like deep longing for like this kind of Catholic transcendence that he never could do. And I always thought like I'd be interested in that, but I wish other people were too, like combining abstract postmodern writing with like actual Catholic seriousness. And then maybe I've already been talking too long on this question, but probably Walker Percy too. Him and Walker, yeah. Does anyone have any questions on the chat too? Anyone on the chat wants to weigh in? 6,000 people listening right now. Okay, well, yes, go ahead.
When are you planning to just read along semester?
So actually, no, I really would do that. Before Kate and I came to the Palouse and like WSU and here, just like here, 2019, we were at the University of Illinois for 3 years, and I did a class that was still one of my favorite classes of all time called Literature and Historical Imagination or something like that. And I was like, I cannot believe my luck. Like they literally let me do whatever I want to do. And so I just assigned 9 books, like Dostoevsky, Walker Percy, and I actually assigned Infinite Jest in this class. And the University of Illinois is a very, very good school. It was good quality students. So maybe the positive reaction was the students were good. And I couldn't believe how obsessed they were because the book is 1,000 pages long. I assigned sections. I had them read certain sections. Like if anyone's familiar with the book, like you read a lot from like the Incandenza family and at the academy, the Enfield Pettis Academy. Such a good book. Oh my gosh. Like talking about it makes me happy. Like I'm gonna, because of your questions, I'm gonna go read it again. Like it's just amazing. So I would love to do that. I actually would love to kind of read up to that course because we read like Dostoevsky's Underground Man, which is the first kind of existential novel, read Wise Blood and Lost in the Cosmos and stuff. And it was just books and discussion and people really enjoyed it. So like, haha, funny question. Like, yeah, like I'm totally game for it. Especially, I've been very, very honored and blessed this semester. I keep bragging about this, like how well attended our Civil War class has been. If you all have like this kind of interest within Vandal Catholic of a specific course, like I'm always open to suggestions. If you guys want to do that, I'd love something like a literature thing again. Question on the thing, where can we get a signed copy of the new book? Well, the book has to come out to get a signed copy first. But to Sherry, I promise 20 signed copies to you and your family, I promise, with zero pretense and zero anything, just straight up. To be serious, like I promise, I will probably be really gross and self-promotional. And you'll know when the book comes out. I probably won't talk about it. But the way, what's going on is like I signed this contract in November, and my book is as long as Infinite Jest. Maybe it's horrible. Like Infinite Jest was 1,000 pages and good. Maybe mine is like, why? You know, it's awful. But it's just as long. It's very, very long. And so what the editor wanted to do with his editing team is have me break it up into 22 sections of 50 pages each, where I proofread it, his team proofreads, send it back to me. So when it's done, it's just like perfectly snappy and like exactly how we both want it to be. We've only gotten through 6 sections. There's still 16 sections to go. God willing, I'm done on my end, like getting through the whole kind of front end. Hopefully we get through all 22 maybe by the end of the year. That'd be like by December, like in the next 9 months. And then 2023, I don't know at that point, like what, every press is different. I've only had 2 books come out and both those presses were different in how fast they produce it and soliciting like whatever, like, you know, hype for it and all this kind of stuff. But like all jokes aside, like, no, I'll tell you guys, like when it's out, like go buy my book, like all that kind of, it's still, so Sherry, I think it's still considerably a little bit far out. And also the press that that's under contract with is in Toronto. So they have the trucker thing going on. So maybe never. I don't know. Maybe Justin Trudeau will ban books in Canada. So I don't know. Any final questions? I for real, like, yeah, like I want to go home and drink beer, totally. But like I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has any final ones on the chat or in person. What kind of beer do I like? Okay. I will answer this question now. Like I like beers like pizza, like where there's no bad, like they're all good. Or like ice cream, it's impossible. I used to hate IPAs, but my brother-in-law was like obsessed with IPAs. And at first I like hated him for it and disrespected him. And now I'm like, maybe he was right. So like IPAs, the stock is like increasing for me. I think I like Hefeweizen, like the German stuff the best. Like I've gone down like Vin, that store in downtown, you know what I'm talking about? It's on Main Street in Moscow. It's close to Cecily, you know what I'm talking about. It's down by, like across from Hodgkin's drugstore or whatever, the pharmacy. Ooh, serving the blues since 1890. Cool, like tell you all the time, great. I'm kidding, I love Hodgkin's. It's right across from Hodgkin's, and they have like some really like good like Oval and different like Benedictine beer they import from Europe. They even do this weird thing that I love, that I'm a total sucker for. They'll have these beers from the Abbey, these like Trappist beers, and they have like white chalk written on them, like inscrutable hieroglyphics or whatever. And it's like, oh, extra $10 for that? Okay. Like it's like a legitimate stamp or something. So like I think I like that the best. Like doing a monastic tour of like beers with monks, like that would be really cool.
What piece of relationship advice would you specifically never dare to give?
It's actually a really serious question. I swear, I am dead serious. Like I want to tread lightly in answering this. Like people that do like relationship stuff, like God bless them, that's awesome. Like, you know, married couples, pre-marriage Cana training and stuff. We need people like that in the church. Like I would never give any advice ever, like period. Because it's kind of like Walker Percy actually talked about this. He's like, in Lost in the Cosmos. This is maybe why I like him so much. He's like, rest assured, if you go to a conference on like tips on marriage, and the woman there is like signing these books, like her 7 secrets, she's the worst person ever. She probably like has a million flings and stuff and is terrible. She's probably compensating. Like she's so horrible personally, but like, oh, you know, whatever, trying to make up for something. No, thank you. You know, like as I always say, like, I am so blessed. I love my wife so much. And, you know, just so thankful to have met her, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, like marriage is hard enough, as everyone can attest to, like just being married, period, right? Where it's like, giving other people advice is so gross, you know, like I invariably find that when I had people, like if it's your parents or people that you trust, they can be very beautiful. But like if a person in our parish, like a young like person like us, like 30s or whatever, was like, oh, let's get together, gang, and I'll share you my tips. It's like, I will assure your marriage sucks. Like you have marriage issues. Like, why are you doing this? Like take care, remove the beam from your own eye. So I would give no advice whatsoever. So none. So all of it. I would not dare give any advice. And the funniest thing I saw was on like a Matt Fradd podcast. And by the way, I'm sorry, I didn't realize amongst Catholics, like Matt Fradd is like royalty. Like I told someone that I didn't know who Matt Fradd was a month ago, and they like tried to kill me. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't talk bad about Matt Fradd. Okay. But so anyways, like they're like, oh, Matt Fradd, oh my gosh. So I checked out his podcast, and it sucks, obviously. I'm joking. He's good. Matt Fradd had this guy on there, had this kid on there. And it was like so true. The comment was so amazing. The comment was definitely written from some like old ornery, like granddad guy, you know, crusty old dude. And it was so true. This kid was on there who's like, yeah, like our age, like 28, 35, whatever. Definitely not past mid 30s. And he was like droning on about marriage. And then he mentions that he like was married, he's been married for 4 years. And some grandfather was like, I don't take marriage advice from anyone who has, unless they've been married at least 40 years, forget 4. It's exactly. So like, I would never give any advice. I don't get why people think they can, you know? Sorry for the too long answer, but none. I would not give any advice. Okay, well, thank you very, very much. Thank you all.